because we are trying too hard to be kind. We are trying too hard to not offend. And we are reading into situations and other people's responses to those situations before it's even happened. So my only advice is to treat an adult like an adult. Actually, not my only. The second one is don't treat others as you would like to be treated. We need to break that golden rule because, for example, I prefer really direct feedback. Just come at me, tell me what needs to happen, and I'm going to make that change for you.
Welcome to Future Fit Leadership, a podcast for leaders at every stage who want to stay relevant in a world that keeps changing. Leadership has shifted. The pace is faster, the expectations are higher, and the future is calling for a different kind of leader. One who is human-centered, grounded, and able to balance capability with empathy. These conversations bring together global perspectives on the skills and mindsets that help people and organizations thrive. Hello and welcome to Future Fit Leadership. I hope wherever you are listening to this conversation, you are well. Today's conversation is one that I have been quietly excited about because we're talking about that part of leadership that almost every business relies on, but very few talk about honestly. And that is people power and the messy middle where leadership, performance, and humanity collide. My guest today is Robyn Djelassi. She's a battle-tested people leader who has spent decades working inside fast-paced tech, e-commerce, professional services, startups, and scale-ups. She didn't set out to work in HR. In fact, she'll tell you she accidentally fell into it after realizing she was terrible at tech, but brilliant with people. Robyn has sat at executive tables, advised boards, led them through growth, restructures, and many crises. She has also lived the pressure that COVID dumped on people leaders everywhere. The one that left you exhausted, a little scorched, and asking bigger questions about how work actually gets done. All of that experience led her to found Impact People Solutions, where she now works as a fractional Chief People Officer. Not part-time, not fluffy, but real executive firepower for businesses without the full-time overhead. And if you've ever been a founder, a CEO, or leader in a business without a dedicated HR function, you'll know exactly why that matters. In our conversation, Robyn cuts through the noise. We talk about why HR still has trust problems, what psychological safety actually means beyond the buzzword, and why treating adults like adults might be the most radical leadership move of all, and how leaders can stop trying to be liked and start being trusted. It is a very practical, candid, and occasionally comfortable and very human conversation. Please enjoy Robyn Djelassi. Hello, Robyn. Welcome to Future Fit Leadership. How are you today?
Hi, Sadhana. I'm well. Thank you for having me today.
Well, we have never spoken to a HR person on this podcast, so I'm looking forward to this conversation with you today. But let's start with your career journey first. How did you start your career journey and what made you land in HR?
Well, it wasn't a conscious decision. And I think many HR people will tell you the same thing. It is a little bit like being, I guess, a journalist or a lawyer. We are not always well loved and not something that you necessarily set out to become. I had originally decided that I would be a technologist. And back in the 90s, I was studying computer science. Turned out really quickly, I realized that I was crap at tech, but really great with people. And so my career gravitated towards HR within the technology industry. And so I took myself back to uni after a few years. My first role was actually HR director for a tech prof services firm. My first position in human resources was that of director, and I thought I'd better get some qualifications. And so I went back to university, went back to Swinburne actually. And since then, I have been working with businesses in the e-com, professional services, startup, scale-up space, doing HR work with great people.
You've worked in a number of industries. Which one did you love the best?
E-com, hands down. E-com was a lot of fun. It's fast. It's frantic.
Yeah.
And there's a pace to it that I just love. The ability to turn things on and off so quickly to be able to attract new customers and offer deals within minutes was really exciting for me. And it attracted a certain type of person, which I liked.
Yeah. And then you went and started Impact People Solutions. What made you do that?
Look, I think COVID burnt me out, truth be told.
Everybody out.
COVID was a lot. Yeah. I was managing human resources for the wonderful company, Vino Mofo. And I was also, through some points of COVID, managing a warehouse. Do you remember those days when if there was a single case of COVID, Sadhana, you had to get the place shut down and deep cleaned and nobody could enter for 2 weeks? The pressure was ridiculous. There was the executive managing that warehouse. I was not okay. Also sales and even marketing for a hot minute, as well as HR during what was a pretty scary time for everybody. And so at the end of that, I decided I'm cooked, I'm tired. And as much as I loved that business with all of my heart, it was time to slow down. And so I started Impact, which was essentially a business back then of doing what I did for Vino Mofo, what I did for Whisper, the company before that, taking them from a really base level or even no HR functionality and providing them with light touch, great HR systems and processes that help them and their people and their business thrive. And I sought to do that fractionally, thinking that I was slowing down. Didn't turn out that way.
It didn't turn out that way. That's so funny. I want to talk to you about fractional people leadership because it's clearly what your business is based on. But before we get onto that, it's interesting because I think big businesses have a HR department and they'll hire people that run that department for them, etc. But a lot of small businesses, of which, most of Australia is full of small businesses, don't have a HR department. And usually it's a director who ends up doing all that grunt work. And there's a lot that can go wrong today.
Yeah.
What's your advice to those small businesses? What's your advice to them in this space?
Get the right advice. Honestly, I've worked with those businesses and generally it'll be the CEO or the CFO who ends up managing HR. Now, if you'd asked me to run a business's finance, oh my goodness, you'd be broke in 5 minutes. So to ask a CFO to manage HR stuff, it's the same. And I think it's unfair on the execs who pick that up, but also the staff. I'm sitting at client site, as we discussed earlier at the moment, had coffee with a lovely gentleman who is one of my clients here. And he was saying that in a previous role, the CEO's executive assistant managed HR, which meant that nobody felt safe talking to that person about what was going on because there was a clear conflict of interest. But you're right. It's not just the safety to be yourself and ask questions and seek advice from execs who are not necessarily educated or they're not taught to do this stuff. But it's also the risks that are now apparent. We think about just last week, UTS, University of Technology in Sydney, were issued with a prohibition order by SafeWork, New South Wales, WorkSafe, as we call it here in Victoria, to pause 150 planned redundancies because of the risk of psychological harm to those individuals. Now, CFOs aren't necessarily aware of that, nor are CEOs. It's my job to know, and it is my job to guide the business and the people through those types of processes and ensure that everybody's safe. There was another case recently of a small business in New South Wales who were fined $100,000 for not having an anti-discrimination policy and grievance procedure. It tanked that business. This stuff's real. So I think unless you're getting the right advice and you have a trusted advisor, not necessarily a full-time person, not all businesses need it, but get the right advice from somebody you trust.
Yeah. And I outsource that to a company that does it all for me, which makes me feel safe because I kind of go, they are the one taking the risk on my behalf, and I do whatever they tell me to do, including contracts and workplace safety and everything else. And you're right. I know my industry and the knowledge I have, but I don't know the knowledge around HR. Let's talk about fractional people leadership. What does that mean?
Yeah, so fractional is not part-time. I'll start by saying that. When I think about the work that we do at Impact, and there are a few of us, we provide executive level HR expertise to businesses on a fractional basis, meaning, for example, that when you go to, when I worked for another organization as an employee, they would get 38 hours plus reasonable additional hours from me. And that would include things like one-on-ones with my team and executive team meetings and coffees with the boss and meeting with suppliers, all of that stuff. When a business hires me today and they say, Rob, we just need about a day a week of you, then I just buy my Mondays or my Tuesdays. They buy 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours of pure grunt. So that means delivering on strategy, working directly with their people on the outcomes that they've asked me to produce over the course of that week or month, whatever they need. It can mean that I'm attending executive meetings, and I do for many of my clients. It can mean that I'm preparing board papers. It's just the grunt, just the work that you're getting delivered without the stuff around it. That's fractional.
The advantage of having a fractional leader is does it suit particular businesses?
Yeah, I think it does. The businesses that we tend to work with cap out at around 200 heads, and we work anywhere from
that's
about.
Still a big business.
It is a big business. Yeah, you're right. So businesses might have HR functions, but they don't have a battle-scarred, grey-haired executive, okay, who can manage the tough stuff, mergers, demergers, divestments, acquisitions, gnarly restructures. You'd be hard-pressed to find a mid-weight HR manager who can give you the answers you need and the direction very quickly on those sorts of things. So what we offer is everything from what's my modern award for this role that really, Dr. Google or ChatGPT, Fair Work website can help you with that, right through to, as I said, divestments, restructures. We've done it all. And because we've done it, we can do it quicker. We can do it leaner. We've got the tools and we know what to avoid and what to do well. And so the cost benefit is high. The benefit, the ROI is high.
Do you think that's the world we're moving into, not just for HR, but for other roles as well? Because I think post-COVID, we've really looked at how business work. People want to do 4 days a week. They want that hybrid solution. We want to do more in less time. Do you think that's sort of the future of some of the roles?
Absolutely do. And not just for the reasons you've mentioned, but also because of old mate AI. I am seeing more and more roles and people coming to me saying, Rob, I want to do what you do. Show me how. Because a lot of the grants and a lot of the administrative work, I speak specifically of HR, can now be done by AI. In fact, I am working with Inventium at the moment, and we're rolling out a Gen AI for HR Pros course. And we have around 100 people signed up to that. It is sensational technology. And what it leaves us with is the expertise that can only be human. So HR, CFO, operations, that really nuanced understanding of what's at play, the dynamics, reading of the body language in any role that can only be done by humans. The rest we can absolutely eventually outsource to AI. So I think fractional work is absolutely here to stay, and we'll see more and more of it.
There's been a time where HR has been a bit of a dirty word in businesses. Do you think that has you think it still is? I didn't think you were going to say that. You think
it still is for sure. Look, I don't love HR, I've got to say.
But you've built a whole business around it.
Yeah, I've got the worst experiences. Here's a little story. I was a child. I still am, obviously. I'm only 21, as you can tell. And I was working for a particular business who shall not be named. And my goodness, I sat on the wrong toilet and I was pregnant. And so I said to my HR person, and I was in HR, by the way, goodness, this is my first time. I'm very excited. Could you please explain to me, how does this maternity leave stuff work? And it's all very confusing. And within a matter of days, I was hauled into the executive general manager's office and asked to explain myself. My integrity was challenged because of the way that he found out about my pregnancy.
Oh,
And I'd
wow.
shared that with human resources. Yeah, sensational story. So I don't necessarily trust HR, and I understand those who don't. I too have been
Mm,
burnt.
mm,
And I also understand the rhetoric that a lot of HR people make work for themselves to
yeah.
feel important. I do get that. And I see a lot of that as well. I'm just going to call it out. What we do is really different in that the work that we do is commercial. And I think that's why HR is a dirty word sometimes. We are not here to give little HR hugs and to talk about your sick puppy at home. I do not have a psychology degree and I'm not trained in that stuff. What I am really good at is understanding a business's strategy, understanding what is it that you need to achieve, and then harnessing the systems and processes of your people
mm,
to help you achieve that.
mm,
That's the role of HR, not giving little cuddles and talking about sick dogs.
yeah.
And I think that's where we get the bad name, the lack of
Yeah.
trust, and perhaps the differences in what we believe we should be doing.
Well, it's interesting. I like the way you use the word commercial because, the most expensive line on our P&L is our
Yeah,
people,
salary and wages every
salary and
time.
wages. And then HR are the department that's supposed to look after that. So they do
Yeah,
need to have a level of commerciality
absolutely.
around what they do.
Yeah,
So my question then is, how do we get HR around board tables and
yeah,
around and right next to the CEO? Because quite often you see the CEO, the CFO, and the chair of the board potentially, but
yeah.
HR has a role in that as well. How do we change some of that?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And I sit on boards, by the way, I'm a NED. And the short answer is learn your numbers,
Mm,
learn the numbers, understand the business. So a lot of HR people will say, "Oh, I partner with a business and I understand what they do." Fantastic, but what are the levers they have to pull? What are their key drivers? What will they stand for and what won't they stand for? And understand how to read a P&L and a balance sheet.
mm, mm.
Once you really are under the hood of the business, then you're speaking a different language to those executives. You really are. You're talking their language. And if you understand that the role is to help the business meet its objectives and not necessarily to be the moral compass, because you shouldn't work for businesses who are morally corrupt in the first
Yeah,
place,
nobody wants to do that.
or to be somebody's parent.
Mm,
The people that you work with are not your children, but you are there to help the business achieve its goals. And realistically, the business never will if their people are not safe psychologically and physically. They don't understand what their roles are. They'll never hit those objectives if they don't know what's expected of them, if they're not getting feedback, timely feedback, if they're not treated fairly. So once you set up all those basic systems and processes that are aligned to the business, then you can't help but hit those numbers. You have to try really hard to fail, right? But you
yeah.
need to first understand the numbers.
Numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned psychological safety. When I say it's become a bit of a buzzword, I mean that
Oh,
in a
it
very
has.
cautious way, but it has become
Yeah.
a bit of a buzzword and
Yeah.
people use it and quite often don't understand what it actually means. It
Yeah.
sits in the remit of HR, but
Mm.
let's talk about what does it really mean for a business and how do we ensure that our environments are psychologically safe?
Yeah. Psych safety and psychosocial hazards. People love to say those words, but I challenge you. Have a glass of wine, put 3 marbles in your mouth and try and say psychosocial safety quickly 3 times. It sounds fancy, right? Realistically, it's not new and it's not this big mystery.
Mm,
Psychological health is a state of well-being where you are able to perform your daily work, right? You are able to function in society and just get on with life safely without undue stress or pressure. Doesn't mean that you are happy. It means that you're in a state of psychological health.
mm,
Okay, so you might come home and kick the cat. Don't kick the cat. That's not okay. But psychological health does not mean that you're happy and upbeat all of the time, right? We all have usual stresses of life. If you can cope with those, be productive at work and society, you're in a state of psychological health. Psychological hazards or psychosocial hazards are anything in the workplace, might harm or impede upon your psychological health. Those things are pretty obvious. We know a lot of them. Bullying, harassment, discrimination. There are laws already. This is not new. What we're shining a light on now are things like poor organizational justice. It happens everywhere. You know, the sales guy, and he's hitting his numbers and he's just killing, he's shooting the lights out, but he's not very kind to work with. In fact, he's really rude.
He's a gorilla in the business.
There you go. But nobody calls him out for it.
Yeah.
Right? Poor organizational justice.
It's a behavior you walk past, you endorse from a leadership perspective, right? So you've got to pull those behaviors up in your business.
Yes. And it impacts the psychological health of your people to see that behavior not penalized. And so we are shining a light now on things like job demands. Your job demands are way too high for the work that needs to be done, or there's, as I said, poor organizational justice, or you don't understand what's expected of you. Anything that could cause damage to your psychological health is a psychosocial risk. And so what we are being asked to do now is the same thing that we would do for physical health. And that is, if you see a cord, an electrical cord laying across the corridor in your office, pick it up and you move it. If you see somebody struggling and not understanding what's expected of them, then you go and explain to them. This is not rocket surgery, as I like to say. And so how do we go about it? Easy. You undertake a risk assessment, the same as you would for physical health. And you involve your people in that. We have lots of tools and templates that we work with our clients on to ensure that they are compliant, but more importantly, their people are safe, because there is, cases are starting to come through Safe Work and Fair Work now around this stuff. So you understand where the risks may exist, and then you put risk mitigation strategies in place, just as you would for physical health. So yeah, it's a buzzword, but it's not as complex as we are making it out to be.
What's your advice to leaders in terms of how they work with their teams around this? Because I think I understand there's a physical, there's the social, but there's also how people talk to each other in a business as well, right?
Yep.
So if you're a leader and you're noticing all of these things, and it's not easy to address, it's really hard to have some of these conversations.
Yeah.
What's your advice to leaders who are sitting in an environment where they kind of go, I need to pull somebody up, or I need to have that conversation, and I need to show the rest of the team that I'm on it and I'm going to do something about it, and this behavior is not acceptable. What's your advice to that leader?
It's scary, right? It's really scary now, because you're thinking, what can I and can't I say? And will this be seen as harassment or bullying? It's terrifying for leaders these days. I get it. For me, treat adults like adults. It's really that simple. If I think about conflict in the workplace as an example, and we deal with a lot of it across our clients, I often say, if a 5-year-old couple of kindergarten kids can work out their differences in the schoolyard, and they do, why can't we?
And they do, yeah.
Yeah, and they do. Why can't we? Because we are trying too hard to be kind. We are trying too hard to not offend. And we are reading into situations and other people's responses to those situations before it's even happened. So my only advice is to treat an adult like an adult. Actually, not my only. The second one is, don't treat others as you would like to be treated. We need to break that golden rule, because, for example, I prefer really direct feedback. Just come at me, tell me what needs to happen, and I'm going to make that change for you. I can't assume that everybody appreciates that feedback.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like you. Just tell me and I'll fix it,
Yes.
But it doesn't work for everyone.
No. And so ask the question, hey, look, I need to talk to you about something that's going on. How would you like to do this? Right? Ask for permission if you need to, but just give the feedback in the way that the person is likely to respond best. And don't shy away from it unless you're being abusive, unless you're being incredibly rude. You can't go wrong.
Or very personal.
There you go. Yeah. The risk is not doing anything, because the behavior or the performance will just remain as it is, if not deteriorate. And you risk your credibility amongst the broader team.
Yeah.
But it is scary. I understand. You can also phone a friend. And that's one of the services that we have at Impact is just that. We're a reactive service for those businesses who just occasionally, or as often as you like, want to call and just get some advice on how do I tell this person to stop doing that without crossing a line. And we'll script it, or we'll talk the leader through it and workshop it.
More recently, we've had it's not recent, it's been around for a year or so now, is the right to disconnect. How are you seeing this play out in businesses?
Not a lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I think it's,
interesting.
I'm a bit controversial on this one. I think it's a storm in a teacup, to be honest with you. We've always been able to switch our phones off. We've always been able to shut our laptops, right? And I've worked with many people who, will set a focus on their phone, for example, after 5 o'clock, I'm not available. Any calls from work, in the bin. I'll deal with it in the morning. It's always been available to us. The trick now is that you can ask your employer to stop, and if they don't, then there can be prohibition orders put in place, or sanctions rather. I think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup. I think it's just a reminder to employers that individuals have the right to personal time. Of course they do. And generally a full-time person is employed 38 hours plus reasonable additional. We need to remember that. It's not just a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Those reasonable additional hours, you are generally, unless you're on an award, compensated for as well. And so it's finding that middle ground. But look, we put policies in place and we've run sessions on this stuff. I don't think it's that complex.
Okay. Let's move to diversity. I think a lot of, we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, and potentially we hire for comfort because it's, again, risky to break some of the rules as quickly as we might want to break them. How do you help people that you work with hire for difference, number one, or hire for diversity, and then set them up to win? Because quite often it's not successful because our processes and systems are not set for a diverse workforce.
Yeah, you're right. Look, how do I help my clients to hire for diversity? That's tricky. We are not recruiters. I'll start there. But what we do is talk to them. First thing we do with every client, rather, is we look at their compliance and we get them set up so that they're not going to get sued. And then we train them. Anti-discrimination, harassment, bullying, all the usual things you'd expect. And we talk about bias. Okay, conscious, unconscious bias, direct discrimination, indirect discrimination. And then I share stories. Okay, so my surname is Djelassi. My husband's from Tunisia and England. Okay, so Muslim. Yeah, that kind of shocks a few people. I'm neurodiverse. I'm a bit neurospicy. I am ADHD as hell and medicated, right? It's not a superpower. It's also not a disability. But they hired me, so they've got some spice on their team, whether they like it or not, right? And I'll also share stories about, and I genuinely do, Sadhana, about my experiences in the workplace and being the only woman on all 5 executive teams I've sat on, except for one, the 6th, right? Sitting on boards, being the only woman at that board table. And they hired me, these people, my clients. And so I share those personal experiences and also some war stories from the front line on HR and things that I've seen and experienced and how things have thankfully changed over the 20-odd years I've been doing this, but we still have further to go. I also cast a pretty keen eye around their team, and we need to ensure that indirect discrimination is not occurring. So I think we're getting better at the direct stuff of actually being aware of diversity. It's the indirect stuff. It's the setting a meeting at 7:30 every Monday morning when the only parent in that team can't be there because he needs to drop his children off. Yeah. Or insisting that, hey, we've got this team lunch during Eid. Well, I can't eat. And why would you set it at that time? That's just ridiculous. So we do some great observations with our clients, and then we work with them on the systems and the processes that are around inclusivity and make sure that everybody is a part of that team.
What about the hybrid world of work? That's become a big topic of discussion.
Yeah.
You've got the Victorian state government that wants to actually come out and say everybody is entitled to work 4 days a week.
Yeah.
I just hope that it'll be a disaster if they do that.
I don't think it's
just
possible.
the ludicrous thing I've ever heard.
Mm.
But what's your advice to leaders around embracing this? Because it is a real shift in how we work, but I believe it is the future of work, and we need to find ways to have distributed leadership teams and understand that people are doing their work, even though they're not doing it from home, and they might be doing it from a coffee shop, whatever that looks like.
Sure.
How do you work with leaders around that?
Yeah, it's a challenge, particularly as you raised earlier, with the right to disconnect. Okay, to balance that. How do we work with leaders? Every business is different. And I have worked with businesses who insist on 5-day a week in office. Now, as a Gen Xer, I managed all those years. Isn't it crazy? Dropping my child at childcare before dawn and hauling us into the city.
Did it.
Right? The world didn't end. It wasn't ideal. Okay. So I think that there is a better way. For certain roles, that's going to absolutely be necessary. However, I think flexibility is a great thing to a point, depending on what the business can tolerate. And so when we think about distributed leadership or remote leadership, I disagree, first of all, that, if you hire a fully formed adult, you should trust them implicitly. To some extent, I do trust but verify. Yeah. Because my experience, and I'm going to have a lot of people come for me after saying this, is that not everybody's working 8 days a week, 8 hours a week from
8
home.
hours, yeah. No.
Let's just be really clear.
Of course
they're not.
Yeah.
Right? The activity tells me that. So we can talk about outcomes, but if the outcomes aren't there and the activity's not there, then that person's probably going to either need a very firm discussion or to come back into the office and be monitored. There's a lot of that going on. As I said, people will come for me, but it's not a case of grown adults all acting like it, unfortunately. So trust but verify would be my first. What does your business need as well would be the second thing, to understand what does your business really need and where are you prepared to flex. So the law says, and rightly so, that there are some circumstances under which businesses provide flexibility. Okay, carers' responsibilities. You might have elderly parents. You may be unwell. There are a range of reasons that you can request reasonable accommodations and workplace flexibility. And I am absolutely in favour of that. It is a protected right that we all have. However, needing to go to a Pilates class at 2 p.m. and maybe not wanting to come back to the office might not suit the business. I understand that it might suit the individual. So it's that balance. Where are we prepared to flex and where is it a hard no? And importantly, maintaining that no matter who's asking the question. Yeah. Because where we fall afoul
that consistency in the message back. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm all for flexibility. Personally, I have an office and I like to go to my office to do my work, or at client side as I am today, because I'm too distracted by my lovely Labrador or putting the washing on at home. Yeah. And I find that I work much later in the evening if I'm working from home. I'm more focused in an office and I can log off and have a life and see my family. Yeah.
How do you think Gen Z and Alpha are going to change the way we lead?
We raise them. So,
I know.
All the Gen Xers, I know that I talk about, we all complain about Gen Z and Alpha, and I go, oh, we raise those little rat bags. How will they change the way that we lead? I think that when I was growing up in corporate, what I wanted and needed was secondary to what the business or the organisation I was working for, my manager wanted and needed. It was absolutely did not factor into any discussion or consideration. We will be taught that is no longer okay, that individuals should be treated as such, and that we need to consult with people around our decisions and the way that we expect them to work. I think that they will hopefully teach us some humility as well, because what I'm seeing is a lack of boundaries and structure, that they're not scared of the boss. I was terrified of CEOs in my 20s. True.
Yep.
Right? There was a reverence and a respect. That is just, I'm seeing those walls being broken down, and I quite like it. I really like it, actually, because at the end of the day, we're just humans.
We're humans, yeah.
Yeah, we're just human. So I think they can teach us a lot.
Given that you work in the performance field, HR is about performance, I'm interested to know what you think about KPIs. So, usually we put KPIs in place to make sure that the person is performing. You must have done X number of things, 50 sales calls a week or whatever that looks like. Do you think that narrative is going to shift over the years as how we lead change and the generational issue comes in? I can't see Gen Z and Alpha wanting to be led in that way either. What are your thoughts on that?
It's the old adage, isn't it? If you measure it, you focus on it. So what you measure gets the attention. So I think we'll always have some form of KPI or OKR. We need to measure output. So if we're having people working remotely or in a hybrid manner, how else do we know how well they are performing to help us reach our business goals? So one thing we do at Impact with a lot of our clients is we'll have a look at their business strategy. Okay, you need to understand that to be effective in HR. Once we understand that, we'll work with their exec team or their leadership team to come up with a balanced scorecard. Right, with design in 1992 at, I think it was Harvard or was it Stanford? This stuff's not new, right? And you would generally have 4 or 5 metrics: a finance metric, a customer metric like an NPS, an eNPS for your employees, something around ESG, and then something around operational excellence. Because running a good business is not just running a financially profitable business. It is about being a good human, right? So being good to your people, running a financially viable business, good to your customers, good to the environment, and operational excellence. You tip those 5 things off, then you've got a good business. So what I do is I'll assign one KPI or metric to each of those 5 areas, and then say, now each of your teams, if they want to be successful, the only way that they will be is helping the business to be successful. So get them to line up their KPIs against those. Really simple. Again, you have 100, 200 people shooting in the same direction as your business needs to go to hit its strategy. You have to try hard to fail. So I think we will always have some form of static measurement. However, it needs to be in service of the business.
You talk about your adults leadership framework. Take me through this. I love it. I've got some notes in it, but take me through this. It's a fabulous.
I thought you might ask me
framework.
Look, it's something that I have come up with because I do tend to coach a lot of new-ish leaders or even leaders who just want to refresh, and we're stuck in that what can't I say to people without getting told off. So this framework, it speaks to my philosophy of just treating adults like adults. And yes, it starts with an A, and it is accountability over approval. So when I talk to people learning leadership, it's about not leading to be liked, but leading to be trusted. Because I think when we start off as new leaders, most people just want to be loved, right? They want to be the good guy, the cool mum. Like they said, what was that movie where I'm a cool mum? What was it? Oh, no, I can't remember. It'll come to me. Yeah, it'll come to Mean Girls. Oh, I'm not like a normal mum. I'm a cool mum. Yeah, right. I'm not a normal leader. I'm a cool leader. Stop it. Right. Lead to be trusted and set really clear expectations. So accountability over approval. Right.
Can I just jump in on that? Because I've got a question around that.
Go. Yeah.
Because leadership requires us to live in the middle ground, right? So we can't be too hard and we can't be too friendly. We're not here to be their best friends. We're here to make sure that the business makes money so we can pay everybody and the business makes a profit. And it's that fine line that we have to walk all the time. What's your advice, particularly to new leaders, on how they walk that fine line?
Sure. Ask yourself, am I being clear or am I just trying to be liked? Okay. So that am I being clear? First thing, right? And to think about whether what you're saying and what you're asking, and I hate that clear is kind message, but it is very true.
Yeah, the Brene Brown one, I like it. But it's so true though. You know,
isn't it?
You can be clear, but you can be unkind in the process.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think there's, the balancing act is just being human and knowing, being an adult. Am I being a douchebag in this moment? Am I being clear and not over buttering it up to be liked? Yeah. You know the line. We talk about harassment. I do a lot of training, for example, on sexual harassment, and people roll their eyes, Sadhana, and I say, you know, there is a line. It's bright red, fluorescent, and flashing. So don't tell me that you can't say anything to a woman these days, right? I can't even compliment her on her shoes. That'll be considered harassment. That is such BS. There's a line, you know, when you're crossing it, and you can compliment me. My shoes are great. The same with leadership, right? To stop and think to yourself, am I crossing a line here? You will know.
You know.
But don't say something just to be liked. Yeah. So it's again, not rocket surgery, but accountability over approval. Hold people to account kindly and with clarity.
And let's go to the D.
All right. The D is debrief, don't rescue. Okay. So when mistakes happen, resist fixing them for your people. I'm a parent and I struggle with that because I do it for my kids. So when people make mistakes, and we all do, a million a day for me, use it as a teaching moment or a learning moment. Don't jump in and fix things for them. Like, simple. But again, we tend to sort of overcompensate and try and be kind and fix things for people.
The U?
Uncomfortable is useful. That's where I've found my greatest growth.
Like that one. Yeah, because that's right. That's when you grow. That's when you know that you are growing. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't smooth the edges. People will grow through the change and through the stretch. And growth lives in the challenge, right? Uncomfortable is useful. And the L is let go of control, which sounds silly for a leader, but delegate the outcomes, not just the tasks. So sometimes you have to say, look, we need to achieve X. Go figure it out. I'll be here if you need me. Just go get the outcome for me and step back so others can step up. That's hard too. And it's really hard if you're constantly picking up other people's mistakes for them and fixing things up. So you've got to start at the top. You need to let people fall over. Okay. And the T is, I mentioned this earlier, trust before proof, trust but verify. So trust people before they've earned it, because micromanagement does kill ownership, but accountability still applies.
That's interesting, because we and I'll use the hybrid world of work as an example, where people will say, I'm okay for you to work from home 2 days a week, but you need to spend the next 3 months in the business working from the office because I need to learn about you and trust you.
Oh, okay. So it's interesting, because you've hired somebody into a hybrid role. Then I expect that you trust that person to perform the hybrid role.
But the counter argument would be that, it's a hybrid role, but you've got to earn my trust before I allow you to do it, which is a bit to what you're talking about, trust before proof. Yeah.
And, if people don't behave like adults, then you treat them as such. You treat them like children. They get a telling off. So, trust before they're meant to, but verify as well. And it doesn't mean no standards or no boundaries, because accountability does still apply regardless. So, I think that one's really important. And the last one is the S for adults is say less, ask more, which is hard for me. I've got a motor mouth. Coaching versus telling. Ask the questions, let people find their own answers. What's your next step? What do you think the real issue is here? And people will figure it out. Because we're not managing, we're leading.
I love that. It's a really, really good and easy framework for leaders to use. And it's very simple. So if people want to know more about this, is the best place to go to your website to find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not on the website, but I'm more than happy to share copies with anybody who'd like it. Absolutely. So we're just at CPO, that's Chief People Officer, cpoconnect.com.au, or one word.
Well, we've come to the time in our podcast where what we call the spotlight shuffle. If you were sitting in front of me, I'd give you a basket full of 20 questions. You'd pick a number and you would be asked a question. But we're doing this virtually. So I have a page of 20 questions. I need you to pick a number and I'll ask you the question next to that.
Lucky number 4, please.
Number 4, what leadership quality will matter even more in the next decade?
Empathy. Absolutely, empathy.
Why do you say that?
I don't think there's been a great deal of it. Certainly recently, I know that the world is a pretty scary place right now. And there is so much ugly discourse. There's no polite discourse that I've seen recently. And we talk about anti-discrimination, harassment, bullying, and we are seeing people vilified because of religion, because of the color of their skin. We're seeing anti-immigration rallies and people shot in the States for opinions that I personally find abhorrent. However, what I find even more abhorrent is that somebody was killed for them. I think as leaders, empathy, because we are human coming into a workplace or working remotely, whatever the case might be, to
and
care for your
everybody's different.
people.
Everybody's
Absolutely.
different.
Don't treat people as you would expect to be. I think empathy, the world needs more of it, and certainly leaders will need to step up on that. 17.
Here we go. What's one decision you're proud of, even if it wasn't popular?
One decision I'm proud of. Yeah, I let go of a client pretty recently, actually, a client that had been racist. And I had spoken to the CEO about that. No action was taken. I went to the board. Again, no action was taken. In fact, my colleagues and I were called liars and troublemakers, even though we have the proof. We've got the receipts. Was it popular? No. Sadhana, we needed that cash.
Yeah.
And we're a small business. I mean, we really needed that client.
Yeah.
But I'm incredibly proud of what we did. And I'm incredibly proud that we stayed true to our values.
I was just going to say, that's living your values and walking the talk as such, isn't it, really? Yeah. And I think your internal team really respects you as a leader when you do that.
Yes. They were terrified, as were I, but I stuck up for my team, and that is my role.
Yeah. Good on you. All right. Your next number?
Let's go, goodness, let's go 20.
Oh, the last one.
Yeah.
How do you measure your impact as a leader beyond performance metrics?
That is a great question. That's me stalling now. How do I measure my impact as a leader? Well, I can proudly say that I am still in touch with many individuals who I've coached and led throughout my career. And I can also let you know that I've been very fortunate that only recently have I had to start marketing my business because of a new service that we've developed. But for nearly 3 years, it's all been through word of mouth. And I have been very lucky to have clients who I've made redundant in previous lives and clients that I've fired because I do things the right way. And so if I think about my leadership impact more broadly than just those who have worked directly with me, but those whose lives I've impacted through the work I've done, I like to think that that impact is evident in the business I've created.
Your last number?
5, please.
Okay. What's the best career advice you've ever received, and do you still follow it?
Look, the best career advice I ever received was from a gentleman by the name of John Rowland, who was managing director at Unico Computer Systems. He hired me as a 30-something young woman with a 4-month-old baby and gave me my first job in HR. And he just said to me, shut up, do it, get it done, right? And I did. And he said to me, I don't want to hear that I'm a woman. I don't want to hear any of these silly jokes about being blonde. I've hired you and everything that comes with you, everything, the baby, the madness. There was a lot going on in my life at that time. And I just met this man. And he said, just do it. The work. Just get the work done. And it has held me in good stead. It's really simple, right? But just do the work.
Isn't it amazing when we have, and particularly as women, because I've had a number of leaders who've done the same thing with me, where they not only just open the door, but they back you in, they've got your back every step of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And he saw me as a human, not as a new mum. And that just get the work done, Rob, has absolutely held me in good stead to this day. And I'm proud to say I'm still friends with him today.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, and good luck with your business. Again, if people want to reach out to you, they just go to the website.
BPOconnect, all one word, .com.au. Would love to hear from you.
Great. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sadhana. Bye.
If you like what you've heard, please share, rate and review this podcast. And don't forget to share it with anyone who might benefit from hearing it. The producer of Future Fit Leadership is Maritza Barone from Guide Your Light Network. If you would like to reach out to me, please DM me on any of my social media platforms. I'm available for speaking at conferences or consulting to your business. Future Fit is created in partnership with Future Leadership, a capability ecosystem for boards and executives. If you'd like to join the community and receive a free takeaway each week, sign up to the Future Exchange app in my show notes. Thank you for having me in your space.
This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.